You gotta be fun, Jay. Can you be fun? You can't be fun. That's a prerequisite.
Yeah, it can be fun. Oh,
All
my
right.
gosh.
All right, Jason Ross, welcome to the Brookhill Podcast, Life, Legacy, and Leadership. Just to let everybody know, we have today a special guest.
I like when you say special. Can you say it again?
The special.
That's
We have a special guest today. His name is the Jason Ross. The Jason Ross.
Everybody. I thought that'd be applause.
Tyler, do we not have a clap thing in the background?
It's fine. It's
for
fine.
the Jason Ross. So, Jason Ross, you were a camp counselor, senior counselor of a bunkhouse.
Yep.
The Buckskins.
The Buckskins. That's right.
And if I remember correctly, and if what's written down on my iPad is correct, it was 2010 to 2011. You did 2 summers.
Yep.
And then retired, hung up the red T-shirt.
That's right.
For 1 summer.
That's right.
And then we asked you back as an assistant camp director.
That is true.
Then somehow you were promoted to...
I wiggled my way.
You wiggled your way in to the camp director.
Position.
Full-on camp director.
Yep.
And crazy enough, you are another one of those odd people who was never a camper, say it isn't so, at Brookhill.
That's right. Let's tell everybody. I was not a camper.
You were not, which is very rare, because, and especially your day was kind of one of the last.
Not because I didn't want to.
That's
it wasn't
right.
because I heard of Brookhill and was like, I don't want to go to that place. It was like I didn't even know it existed until I was in college, and then I was like, I want to work at that camp, like hardcore, and then I never left.
But yet the church that you went to growing up, and at least the pastors that were your pastors were my youth pastors.
Yeah.
Neither one of us heard about Brookhill from them, but yet now they send a pretty large group up.
Yeah, they do. They do. They love Brookhill now.
That's too cool. David and Wendy, it's so fun that we have that connection of David and Wendy. You may talk about them a little bit on this podcast. But before we jump into that, we are going to begin a first ever game here on the podcast.
I like games.
A lot of podcasts
I feel like
do
I'm
this.
pretty good with games.
You're not, but we're going to start with you. No, you are. So we're going to start with you, and here is the game. Are you ready?
I don't know. I'm a little nervous.
So you're going to set the bar. We're going to keep stats. You know me. We can't just play a game for the fun of it. We're going to keep stats.
Okay.
And then every guest, you're actually going to be in first place after today. Not because necessarily you're any good, just because of no one else you've competed against.
So we just don't play with anybody else.
Okay, then we'll do that. Okay, so here's the game. You have 20 seconds.
Okay.
T. Finch, if we can have a 20-second timer up on the screen now. Did you see how I did that?
That was very professional.
Thank you very much.
That was really cool the way that happened.
And here is the game. And as soon as I get done explaining it, the time will begin. You will have no time to think about this. Are you ready?
You're going to explain it, and then I'm going to go?
And then it's going to be a go.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay.
All right.
The game is name in 20 seconds. It's going to be about Brookhill. This is a Brookhill podcast.
Okay.
As many cabins, camp songs. So you got Devo, you got Council Ring, and you've got...
In 20 seconds?
As you can. And activities. So you've got 3 categories. You can name it as many as you want.
Okay.
This is to set the record. Right here, you're the first one. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Go.
Mustangs, Walkers, Broncos, Morgans, Mavericks, Appaloosas, Buckskins, Pacers, Phillies, Palominos, Lipizans, Pintos, Thoroughbreds, Galicinos, Chestnuts, Roans, Blazers, Bays, Percherons, Arabians. I got through all the cabins.
Time. You did get through all the cabins. What is that was our doorbell buzz, but that right there was pretty good.
10 more seconds. I could have done some.
That was pretty. You could have gotten activities or camp songs or whatever.
Man.
Okay. Well,
can I do a separate one with just camp songs? I mean, I would. Maybe I don't know.
That's not how this works.
I can't
Tyler,
talk
unofficial.
Unofficial score before checking the review. 21.
21. I think that's pretty darn good. I think that right there.
I feel good. My heart's pounding, man.
Your heart's pounding.
It's hard. You know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I wanted to get you kind of woke up here and get you going here. All right, so
that's the score forever. That's it.
That is your score until you come back on here.
Oh man, I feel sorry for the next person.
All right, so let's jump into this thing. So tell us about your life now. You married, kids, the whole bit here.
Yeah. So work full time here as the camp director, which has been amazing. And I have 3 kids.
Come on.
I am married to Sydney Ross, who was, don't know if you knew this, my sister bunkhouse.
Okay.
At camp. We met at a Bible internship, and then we became close at camp. And then, it was just like, it was easy. And so when we got married, we have 3 kids. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So we're in the thick of parenting. We're in the middle of it. Man, we love our life. We love what we're doing. We love the vision of Brookhill, and that's why we're here. We're all serving it together, and that's kind of what we're doing with our life right now. I mean, I know that generally it's like, okay, I do all this stuff with different jobs and stuff, and we really are in a great season of being able to hone in on this is our thing that we do. We love it.
And so you and Sydney, you met at the internship, but you also worked camp together, met here. Mm-hmm. And was she a camper here back in the day?
She was a one and done.
Okay.
Yeah, she came her graduate summer and loved it, changed her life.
Did she become a JC, or was it not until the internship that
she... So she didn't become a JC. She actually found out about the internship through Brookhill. So she wouldn't even be here. She wouldn't have met Stephen and Katie. She wouldn't have, our mentors, Stephen and Katie Sexton, who were real close with us.
Who we've had on the podcast here.
Yeah, Stephen's been on the podcast. Sydney helped start one of their first ministries kind of coming out of the church, and so she has been a part of their life. But she wouldn't have even met them had it not been for her one summer at Brookhill, and then the internship, and then meeting the love of her life, which was me. Of course. Yeah.
So working Brookhill as someone who had never been here as a camper, I don't understand what that's like. Tyler doesn't get what that's, most of the people here, you get it, because I know as a camper, when I came as a camper and we were singing, these wagon songs where, you're having a lot of fun on the wagon, Bodos could eat not what I chew, and you're like repeating all, it's just these weird like camp funny songs. As a camper, it's weird, but then year after year, you learn these songs. You're like, oh my gosh, and you're telling your parents when you get home and all this kind of fun stuff. But as a counselor, you walk in to the Buckskins. Yeah. And camp starts, and everyone else gets it. Everyone else is singing council ring and doing the motions, and you're going...
Yeah, so, golly.
What's that like?
It's fun. It's funny. I don't know what the situation of camp was. I don't know what it was like. I had never heard about it before. So, when I came to this internship... I was there, and Stephen was there, and Stephen had brought it up to me, what do you think about being a counselor at Brookhill? And I was like, what is that? And so, he hired me, and so when I got here for staff training, I knew nothing about anything. So it wasn't like my first week. It was like I walked in, and I remember some of the moments that I had that was like, I don't understand what's happening. So I learned... Every single counsel, I was on the counseling band first off, like right out the gate. They were like, just be in the counseling band. So I did counseling. I learned all the Devo songs. I learned every single wagon song. I learned all the cabin names, which I had to learn all the cabin names the right way. And so then, it was a lot, man. It was a lot to process in 1 week.
1 week. That was all staff training was back in the day.
Yeah, 1 week.
1 week.
1 week. And so then I had to run a bunkhouse. And so it was, to say the least, it was overwhelming. But I think that there was some grace. I had a really good AC. I had Philip Lee was my... He was the man, dude.
Amazing.
He's still like my hero.
He is.
And he was my AC. He basically ran my bunkhouse the first week, just showing me, hey, here's what you do here. Hey, you told the story. It was a little deep, for the first night. I'm coming out of Bible college. I'm like, let's get these kids saved. First night, let's go. I don't know the routine. I don't know the program.
Listen, kids, fun is second. Salvation is first.
And that's what my heart was. So. Yeah, so Philip kind of helped me through the first week, but it was really cool. I'm glad he did, and I'm glad it worked out that way. It was a God thing because it was almost like I got to experience camp for the first time, and that's when I really fell in love with it. My first week, it was just like it was a game changer. It was, I remember going through the activities and going, "Oh my gosh, these kids are having fun," it was great. And then that first Thursday night when I'm watching kids go up to the cross, it was like a clicking moment. It's like, oh my gosh, this is what's so special about this place. And then obviously then you have Friday night ministry and things, and it sealed the deal. And I think what really sealed the deal was the kids coming up and hugging me in my chair on Saturday, telling me what an amazing week they had, what God did in their life. And it was just like, it's the greatest thing I've ever been a part of. So I feel like, I was thrown into a bunkhouse, but there was a little bit of grace. I felt like God was kind of working it out, and obviously I fell in love with it. Thank God for Philip Lee.
I love it. That's what did it for me, was that first week. And for me, it was a JC, but to have someone come up to me on Saturday, and back then we kneeled in the chairs. I know now it's a little different, but still we have that moment on Saturday where someone came up to me and just said, "You changed my life." Mm-hmm. And up to that point, I wasn't a life changer. That's not who I was. I was selfish all about me. And so Brookhill taught me that selfishness is actually not the way to live.
Oh, yeah.
It taught me that it's so, and not only did they say it, when they allowed me to be a part of that, when they allowed me to actually change someone's life, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're right.
Yeah.
And so to be a part of that, I love that. So I definitely know where you're coming from there.
Yeah. Now I'm not gonna say it wasn't stressful though. It was a lot. It was I was thrown into the fire for sure. It was awesome though, man. I mean, like Brookhill has, like, as a counselor, has such a really cool way of, like, I don't know how you would call it, but like maybe like expedited growth, because you're such a high level leader position, just right out of the gate, no matter really what position you are on all summer staff, it grows you so fast. And again, I think that's another one of the special things about it. I don't think it's just the kids, although that's the reason we're here and that's what we're doing. But the byproduct is the growth that you experience. You get done with summer camp and you're ready to take on the world,
I do think from a leadership standpoint, when you're thinking about being a leader, you always think, okay, well, I want to be in charge. But the one part you don't ever factor in is the responsibility piece.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why you grow so much, because responsibility's heavy. And the more responsibility you're given, you have to grow.
Yeah.
Or it's going to push you underwater. And if you're going to keep your head above water as a leader, you have to grow. You can't stay where you're at. And so I love that. You get put in charge of a bunkhouse, and it just causes so much growth. Yeah. But how cool was it? You were saying going up to the cross, watching those kids going up to the cross. Did you ever imagine? Was there ever a moment, 2010, 2011, that you thought, I'm going to lead that one day? As you were watching Steve Sexton at the time lead crucifixion, did you ever think, God's called me to do that one day? Never thought that.
No, golly, it's like, how do you dream that big? That's a big dream. I mean, that's like, I'm going to take this guy's job. When you're thinking about filling in Steve and Sexton's shoes, you know what I'm saying? God, that's, no way. Absolutely. I loved everything that I was doing. And had I known that, I might have vomited at the time, I knew so little. Actually, I knew so little about camp. I don't know if you knew this or not either. My first week at staff training.
Yes. No, you told me this story. I want you to tell this. This is my favorite.
So I'm in the middle of everybody, and they're doing kind of like a final Q&A, and they've been rolling through training, and golly, the training you get at staff training is amazing. And then, they're teaching me songs. They're trying to tell me how to be in the bunkhouse, and so
it's been 4 days, 8 a.m. to midnight. Man. So much covered in the staff training.
Oh, man,
and here you are at the end of staff training. Hey, does anybody have any questions? And you slip your hand up.
I slip my hand up, and I'm like, so, like, what, like, is there a dress code? What are we supposed to wear? And it got really quiet in the room, and I'm like, looking around, like, did I say something wrong? Like, and I said, all right, what kind of, like what shirts do I need to wear? like, do they need to like not have print on them? Like, I'm like trying to figure out the dress code, and then Stephen just everybody's so quiet, and now I'm looking back and I'm noticing that probably people were just like kind of giggling under their breath, and Stephen walks up and he's like, "We'll give you a shirt. It's okay. You can get one." But obviously, I was so new to it, I didn't get it yet. You know, I didn't get the legacy of the red T-shirt. You know, which is sad. You know, probably somebody didn't get on our summer staff. I took their spot. I don't even know the legacy of the red T-shirt. So I don't know.
That's incredible. You know, I love your story because, you know, the call of God on someone's life does not rely on people.
Yeah.
It only relies on God. Mm. You know, because most of our staff now, every JC and all summer staff, they are here because they were a camper. And which really was that way back then. And there were, you know, some that God would bring across the path. Steve Sexton was one of those. Mm-hmm. You were one of those. But but what I love about that is, and I remember Jadine Stricker, who she was a camp director for a few years, you know, she said, David, she said, if God puts you somewhere, only God can take you away. But if man puts you somewhere, man can take you away. And what she was saying was, God's got you.
Yeah.
And when you look at your life, I mean, that's the same way. You know, the fact that you were here wearing a Brookhill T-shirt, you know, even with our full-time staff all year, you and one other are literally the only two people on our staff that have never been a camper, but God had a call on your life. Mm-hmm. And I love it. You know, I love the story of David, obviously solid name, solid guy in the Bible. I mean, you know, David, what a strong name. You know, it's not Jason, it's David, you know.
It's another level, man.
It's another level.
It really is.
But, you know, that was David. He was sitting out in the field, you know, and God said, I got you. Mm-hmm. Even if your dad doesn't, even if, you know, no one sees you, I got you. And that's definitely your story. Of you being here at camp. And so you come to staff training, you're lost as can be. You know, you don't know what's going on. And then, you know, of course, just like any young leader, you say things you shouldn't. You know, what is the joke? You know, you give a nickname to your cabin.
Okay, here's the thing.
Tell this story. You got a couple stories that you could tell.
God, I gotta be careful. So, yeah, I think the way you said it is right. You're young. And you know you don't know.
You don't know.
You don't filter. The
right.
filter is not
That's
there
right.
yet, or it's not complete yet. Yeah, I went around calling. Am I allowed to say this?
Oh, yeah.
I went around calling my cabin the Buttskins all summer long. And
this was in front of campers.
This is in front of campers. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And who finally heard it and called you out?
So I called it that all summer long. You know, there were people on the hill that were more veteran than me, and they never said anything. And so I'm not going to out anybody. I'm just saying I'm the new guy, and I was saying this, and you know, everybody's ha. Well, at staff banquet, you know, I get up and I'm in my emotional, you know, end of the year, and I really did have my life impacted, so I'm crying. And then I make this little joke, and I'm like, yeah, you know, something about, you know, the Buttskins. And who's in the room is obviously our camp director, Stephen, and also the founder of Brookhill, Hetty Lou Brooks. And I remember Stephen having to stop.
Tim's in the room, your
Tim's
pastor.
In the room, my pastor's Tim's in the room, his wife, like it's the whole crew.
Right.
Whole crew's there.
Right.
And so I remember Stephen standing up and having to stop everybody and be like, that's not something we say or do. And we don't call our cabins that. And then he sat back down. And then I sat down and I was like,
I'm done. That was all I had. Thank y'all so much. That's all I had.
Now I'm crying for a different reason. Thank you. Feel good. Thank you.
You know, but those moments teach us so much. And I do feel like today and obviously we should always be mindful of how someone feels, but we dance around moments when, you know, you had a lot of growing up to do. You had a lot of maturing to do. To be the leader you are today, to be the dad you are today, to be the husband you are today, it took moments like that to call you. You know, Hetty, just Brookhill 101 to me was Hetty saying, you call them up. I just remember her being up in front. She would always be like, you call them up. You call them up. You call the greatness out of them. And she was so right. There was greatness in you. God's call was in you. Right. And it took Hetty, it took Steve, it took these people to come around and say, Jason, you're better than that, bro. You know,
that was
cool. And I even like what you tell people today. You know, I've heard you talk about don't be a joke, or what's that story that I've heard you say?
Oh, and that's another Steve. Man, I'm telling you, Steven's going to come up a lot, man. He's just like, he changed my life.
No, go ahead. Tell that story.
Yeah, Steven told me he pulled me aside one time, and I just a joke, man. I like to joke. I like to have fun, and everything was a joke to me. And I think that was part of a coping mechanism of my childhood. He pulled me aside one time, and he was like, man, you joke around a lot. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, you're funny. And I was like, yeah, I'm funny. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Glad you noticed.
He said, so, you know, people are either going to think you're funny, and if you take a joke all the time, then you're funny. But, you know, people can think you're funny, but nobody respects you. And, you know, again, it's one of those moments you're like, yeah, you're right. Thanks. And it changed my life, changed my perspective, because it's true. Joke around too much. And, you know, it's just one of those maturing things. You're young and you don't realize, oh, maybe I should take something serious from once in my life. You know, that was before he hired me on the all summer staff. So,
and I think that's a default for a lot of us guys.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Is to joke around a lot. You know, when we don't know what to do, why not tell a joke? Because I don't know what to do.
Break the ice. Yeah.
It break the ice. And you know, but I think it's so important to learn those lessons that you were learning along the way, because you know, you do joke a lot now, but it's on purpose. It has a strategy to it.
Yeah.
And you know, I think it's a gift you have to be funny, because I think you're a really funny guy. And I love, even when you and I joke back and forth, I think we play off each other really well, you know, but I think your gift can be your curse.
Sure.
At the very same time. The very thing that could be your gift can be your curse, holding you back from being effective.
So good.
And I think in every area.
Yeah.
You know, I know for me, people probably don't know this about me. I like to reveal things on the podcast that people don't know about me, but I'm very competitive. I don't ever show it.
That's shocking.
You know, it's very, I don't ever show a lot of people how I like to compete and win all the time.
I thought you were like a participation award kind of guy.
Very much.
Like the ribbon.
Yes, I think everyone should get a trophy. I mean, it's very much, but no, but sometimes I'm so competitive that I'm too competitive.
Sure.
And so I think your gift, bottom line is this: God puts gifts in us that the enemy wants to pervert, that the enemy wants to mess with.
Right.
And so maybe if I can take God meant this for a gift, Jason, to be funny, I'm going to make you a big joke to where you're not effective.
Right.
But as we mature in the Lord, once again, these mentors, as we have these people, so Steve meant a ton to you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, everything, man. You know, I was very blessed to come into, like, when I came here to Arkansas, you know, I had Paul Kern, I had Stephen Sexton, Adam Jones, some of these really strong men around me, and they were all different, and everybody had a different perspective on life, and it was like everybody just dogpiled immature Jason, and it was great. That's what I needed. I really needed a strong male father figure, and I was blessed to get 5 of them from all different perspectives, and that's what made me who I was. Yeah, so, I mean, I would say not just Stephen, but every man in my life at that time shaped me, and I feel like, I feel like God prepares you for what you're about to step into. And by about to, our timeline is like, next year, but really that was 10 years ago. And he was already preparing in my heart, connecting me and getting this kind of moving me in that direction. One of me in Sydney, the things that we pride ourselves on is every decision we've made in life, we've always yielded to the Lord. We've always yielded to say, God, is this what you want us to do? And we love that because it's given us so much peace in our life, and not that God always gives you the answers, because, asks us to ask for wisdom too, but at the same time, God has led us here, all the way since Leaders Academy, all the way down to here. So, I feel like God was preparing us, especially with all the men that were in our lives. So yeah, huge deal. Made a huge deal to us.
And I think so many times we all want to fast forward, skip ahead that process, right? I'm ready, God, I'm ready to be somewhere right now. And I think the greater the calling, the greater the preparation.
Come on. It's great.
And I don't think that's something that I am saying right now. I think that's biblical.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I think when you look at, you look at Moses and what he did at 80. You look at Joseph and what he had to go through as a teenager, and he wasn't till his 30s. You just look at the greater the calling, the greater the preparation. And I think when we try and fast forward the process, we miss the lessons.
Absolutely.
And I think Stephen was a big part of your lessons, and he pushed you and he challenged you. And of course, one of my favorite stories of all time of your process, of your preparation, is the worship leader story, because that's a big part of who you are, is leading crowds. I know as a camp director, you have to lead crowds, but more than just leading crowds, you lead from a guitar. I mean, you lead, you're just amazing, Jason, at leading a crowd, whether it's worship, whether it's council ring, whether it was devos, and you got to do that at a young age. It's so crazy because God was like, okay, you've never been to camp, but you have such a gift at playing the guitar and being funny. I'm going to go ahead and, because who caused Stephen to do that? And see, I think so many times we think, oh, they stopped my opportunity. No. God has that opportunity for you at the right time. And so you get plugged into council ring devos, and you don't even know the songs. But God says, I have a gift in you, Jay.
Yeah.
That's
right.
And I want to develop you now. And so, everybody's like, okay, put me up front. Do this. Okay, you want to be up front? All right, Jason. You're in practice at worship. And tell us that one of my favorite stories, because we found this video the other day. I wish we had the video.
So one of my friends,
Tyler, why don't you have this video?
One of my friends sent me this video, and they were like, dude, check this out. I just found this, and it's me, young me, and I'm on stage, and I've got hair, and I've got the faux hawk, and we're in practice. We're just practicing in this little room, and Stephen. We were videoing it. We were going to video our set so we could go back and watch it. So we're in the middle of the set. Steven comes in and does his wave off sign. That's what he does. That's his move right there.
It was always
shake his head.
And then the fist to say,
and that
hold
means
up.
That was terrible. Hang on, let's fix that. So I don't know what happened, but I guess I wasn't being too vocal. I wasn't being vocal enough. And in this video, Steven just is ripping me. And he's like, dude, lead the room. You've got to speak up and you've got to say something. You got to welcome everybody. Now, I want you to note the struggle here, because I'm in a room with nobody in it. So he's wanting me to lead the room with nobody in it and for practice. And so I get it. However, at the time, in my mind, I was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And so he was like, lead me. Don't cheese me. Lead me. And it's all in this video, and you can just see my face is just like, okay. And it's like I had no wind in my sails anymore. It was terrible. But I love what you said. I think that's so true. The process is so important. There's a verse in... I want to say it's in Proverbs, but it says that foolish people refuse to turn away from evil to achieve their dreams, meaning God honors the process over the product. It's not about it. God doesn't want the product. He doesn't want perfect you. He doesn't want great you. He doesn't want camp director Jason. He wants the journey with Jason. He wants the journey with David and what got you to here. And so I always thought that was such a special thing to remember, because it's not about, can I be the best camp director there ever was? Can I be better than Stephen or Jadine or anybody, any of these people? Can I be better than David? It's not about, can I be better? It's what is God doing with me in the journey right now? And leaning on the Lord in the journey again, prepares you for that calling. It helps you step into that anointing better.
It's so good. I think we're all focused too many times on where we're headed than where God has us right now.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's exactly what you're talking about. Cooper Kupp, guy that you just won the Super Bowl.
My dude.
And he talked about that when someone said, what made you so good? He talked about, well, my relationship with Jesus Christ is always about being in the process and being in the relationship with him right now. And I love that.
So good.
Because we always want to be somewhere else. Mm-hmm. It isn't just like the enemy. Mm-hmm. God's like, okay, where are you taking me? Well, I'm taking you right now. I'm taking you where you're at. And the enemy wants to say, you're in a bad place or you're in a tough place or whatever. And God's like, this is where this is what I'm doing. Right now is what I'm doing.
Absolutely. It's like on a road trip. Like you go, I drive to Texas often, and you drive and, to get to Texas from here or to like Fort Worth or something, you just go straight down 30 and there's dead spots. It's just, where are we going? What are we doing? But then you hit a Buc-ee's, and then it's like a good station, good stop, good celebration. That's where we're going. And then, but it's not, I love that. That's really good what you said. It's not, the question's not where are you taking me? It's what are you doing in me now? What do I need to do now? What do I need to do for you now? How can I better give you glory now? And that's the process that takes you to where you need to be.
It unlocks a different later, It unlocks a different later, but now is so important. And okay, so your life, you've been a kids pastor.
Yeah.
You've been a youth pastor. Mm-hmm. And so, you have a lot of training, whether Brookhill prepared you for that or that prepared you to be a camp director. Yes, I guess is the answer.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah,
all of the above. Jay, when we look at your life, so you are like the American dream. Okay. So you've got, you're married to Sydney. You've got your 3 kids.
Tire swing, big red door.
Tire swing.
White
You've got sod in the back of your backyard.
Yeah. I am that dad. By the way, I am that dad.
You are that dad.
I'm the guy in the back with the socks and sandals, water in his yard. I'm that guy.
Yes.
And I love that. That's my favorite part of being a dad.
And you have a minivan.
I have a minivan. Dude, what? Now that you're piecing it
together.
No,
I'm putting this together for you.
I'm just saying.
You live in Hot Spring. You live in a gated community.
I live in a gated community. That's
Hot Springs Village, 9 golf courses or something like that, 3 lakes. I mean, when you look at your life right now, camp director of Brookhill, I think it's easy to look at you sitting here, people who know you. Oh, he's had it easy. His life is so easy. Who is he to talk about, problems or going through things? And I don't know if everybody knows your testimony, but the stories like yours, Jason, to me show not only the grace of God, the power of God, that there is a God, because if you're not walking with him, you don't get to where you're at today. And not that you have to have or be where you're at. I'm not saying any of that. But I think it's just easy to take a snapshot of your life right now and say, oh, well, Jay's had it easy. It's been whatever. Mm-hmm. And so, if you don't mind sharing just a little bit of your upbringing and your testimony. You came from Dayton, Texas. But I think your story is so cool, because I think if more people can hear your story, then they can get to that call that God has on their life, no matter what your start is. Yeah. God's got you, know?
Oh, man. That's good. Oh, gosh. Man, that's it. It's fun. When you say that, people would say that I had it easy. I don't think anybody has it easy. And I'm going to tell my story and what that looks like, but I don't know, even the greatest kind of childhood you could have, I don't think you have it easy. I think that human nature, I think that anything worth having is you have to fight for. I think that things that are valuable you have to fight for anyways. And so I'm not saying that, there are not some people that have harder than others, but I think everybody has to fight. So if anybody was to say Jason's had it easy, I think in any scenario you have to fight for what's valuable and what is valuable in your life. Anyways, So I grew up in a pretty broken home. My parents struggled. They, divorced home. My my mom had remarried. My dad had not remarried, but had another son. I have two stepbrothers with my mom, and then they divorced, and so just a lot of divorce. And then just ultimately, my parents both fell into a little bit of a lifestyle of drug use, and so my parents were in and out of prison my whole life, and so my kind of a lot of my childhood. So I would live with my mom when my dad was in prison, and live with my dad when my mom was in prison, and so it's just kind of teetered like that. And for a kid who is going through that, it really wasn't as like it seems. It's not like, wow, my life is terrible, because you really, when you're a kid, you don't know any better. You're just kind of looking around. The only thing that I knew was different was, man, I really wish my dad was here, or I really wish my mom was here. And so just kind of through a series of events, I had a really hard time. I would live with my dad, and he was doing drugs at the time. And just by the way, this is not to out my dad at all. He's done through a lot of healing. He loves Jesus. He's a good man. He's not. So none of this is to out him at all. Full honor for him. I'm not saying any of that. But we did have a bad season where he was dealing drugs. I was living with him. It was my 9th grade year. And I remember I didn't know he was doing that. He had just got out of jail and asked me to come live with him, and I wanted to give my dad a shot. Everybody wants to be like their dad. It doesn't
Absolutely.
matter how terrible of a person or it doesn't matter what they've done. It just, you want to be like your dad. It's in you. It's the importance of fatherhood. And so I went to live with him, and come to find out he was not doing super great. He was dealing some drugs and doing some different things, and I kind of pulled me into that lifestyle with him for just about 9 months. I was going to school there, and I was in school. I wasn't in school a lot. We were just kind of in that lifestyle, and I had I remember I had consumed something that made me very sick, and that it made me so sick that I was vomiting for like 2 weeks. I was like really, really not in a good place. And I remember calling out to God for the first time. I didn't know God. We didn't grow up with God. We had been to church a few times. In fact, I remember the only memory I have from church when I was a kid was my children's pastor. Her name was Sister Pam, and she was a super cool person. And I don't even remember Jesus. I just remember Sister Pam, which again, is one of the reasons why I do now. You remember moments that you have with people, and I think that God uses that anyway. So I'm laying in bed. I call it to God for the first time. God, if you don't come do something, I'm going to die. Like I really felt like I was going to die with as little as I was when I was a freshman. I was not a very big person. And so, God came and reached out to me and healed me. It's just a crazy experience. I was healed. 3 days later, I was back in school. I didn't really get saved. I had this moment where I was like, maybe maybe this is the deal. So realized it was a bad situation. I moved in with my stepdad. And by the way, my dad had gone to prison right after that. My mom had gone to prison, both in jail at the same time. And this guy who has no obligation to me at all, my stepdad, pulls me in and says, hey, I think you need to come and stay with me. And so he invites me in. Again, full honor to my stepdad, who completely just saved my life. My cousin was like, hey man, we're going to youth group. Do you want to come to youth group? And I was like, no, that sounds awful. I don't want to go to youth group around a bunch of people that I don't know, and I don't know much about Christianity. I know that there's a lot of people that are weird and stuff. That's all I know. And so I go. I was like, he's like, man, just come with me. It's fine. So I go, and it was that night. I was sitting in a group of a bunch of people. There's these people on my side that are like, flirting, and then there's the people over here that are doing the T9 texting, because that's what we had at the time, and people in the back cutting up, and nobody's really listening. Pastor gets up, youth pastor starts talking about the love of Jesus, does this sermon. I'm in the middle of all these people, and I am bawling. I'm just a puddle of tears, and I'm listening to this guy, and it's like everything he was saying was just like a dagger to my heart, and just completely wrecked me. and people are looking at me weird, and I'm like crying. And afterwards, they led me to the Lord. My pastors from Dayton, from Kent and Missy Richards were the ones that led me to the Lord. Anyways, after that, I just decided I after experiencing the presence of God for the first time and experiencing God's love for the first time and understanding like I'm not unworthy because of my childhood. I'm not unworthy because of the things I've done. I'm like He wants me still. Like God wants me. After that, it was like a rocket. I couldn't stop. How do you stop serving a God that's that good and that gracious? And they pulled me on the worship team. They wanted me to help, and I knew 3 chords. And I remember I played so bad. I was so bad at worship. My stepdad, he was like, "You gotta stop playing. You gotta stop playing guitar." Not because he didn't because he hated worship music, but because I just wasn't good, And so I lived in this tiny house, 2-bedroom house with my stepdad and my 2 other brothers, and I remember, so obviously playing guitar in that small of a space, that's annoying. But I remember I would sneak out in our garage at midnight, and I would just sing these songs, and they were terrible, but I would just pour my heart out to the Lord, and those moments began to shape me for God calling me to something bigger and better. Obviously, along the way, I had to deal with a lot with my parents. I had to deal with a lot of unforgiveness. I had to deal with all that. I learned a lot. Gosh, you learn so much about how toxic unforgiveness is. How brutal that can be. Not on them, on you. They are expecting you to not forgive them. They did something wrong, and so.
I love the quote is from the book Soul Care, and we were talking about forgiveness. They said, "Unforgiveness or bitterness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies."
That's good.
And that's what unforgiveness.
That's so good.
Literally is. But so what are you at this time? Are you 10th grade, 11th grade?
Yep.
As you're playing guitar in your garage, so you're learning guitar, literally playing worship. God is developing you. He's healing you, but you're still mad. You're around 10th, 11th grade at this time?
Yeah, 10th grade.
10th grade.
10th grade. Came in 10th grade, got saved, started playing guitar, started going through all that. Again, learning a lot of lessons. I graduated high school from that place. Again, going to the same church, leading worship, having moments with the Lord, having moments of growth, figuring life out. And, I think, another thing that the devil means so many things for evil, man, and God is so good, man. He's so amazing. I remember my stepdad came to my stepdad, just by the way, was on disability, had hurt his back. So he's on disability trying to take care of 3 kids, that are in high school. We knew how expensive high school can be. And so, man, I remember him coming to me and saying, "Listen, I want you here. I can't afford for you to be here. We are drowning, because I'm doing all that I can." And he said, "Either we'll have to find another place to stay, or you need to get a job." And so I took that as, okay, it's time for me to get a job, and I did. I worked at Little Caesars.
Oh,
Little Caesars, hot and ready, baby.
Yeah, pizza.
Yeah. So I went and I got a job at Little Caesars. And
what did you do at Little Caesars?
I was the dough thrower, bro. So so you make these little sheet outs and you put them in the thing, and when they spread out they don't spread out to the size of the pan. They just spread out about this big, and then you got to toss it and make it the size. And so
you actually tossed the dough.
I'm a dough tosser, man.
Okay.
It was good. I did everything. I actually ended up being the first high school manager.
Wow.
It's exciting times. Yeah, big time. I should have stayed there, man. Maybe.
Yes, you could have been something.
Could have been something today.
Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with it. You really could have owned your own store.
No, but really, no. But I, so I remember getting a job, and it was the craziest thing, and it was odd to people what it looked like. I felt peace about it and how it happened. I would get my paycheck, and I would give my entire paycheck over to my family every single week. And it wasn't like, I'm not saying it's a boast about me. I'm saying I had a peace about it because God was doing something in me. He was establishing something in me, and I didn't realize it. He was establishing a selflessness in me. He was establishing leadership in me. He was establishing, an ability to see beyond myself. And I'm grateful for that. It's one of the other things that I'm very grateful for. I learned a lot. I think one of the most things that I learned through walking through forgiveness, and, no parent is perfect anyways. The perfect parent's not perfect. So my stepdad did the best he could. My dad, my mom obviously had some issues, but did the best they could. And I learned this lesson. It's probably one of the biggest things that changed my life is when God spoke this to me. It's not about, life is not about what people do to you. It's about what God has empowered you to do in spite of what people do to you. Like, God gives you this strength to do something bigger and turn that hurt into progress somehow. And I don't know how he does it, but he does. And I people would look at my life and say, again, Jason has had it easy, or maybe, Jason's had to work through all that. And I'm grateful for all that. I'm grateful that I had what I had growing up, because I think that it shaped me to who I am and the leader that I am. It gives me compassion in a certain area. It gives me strength in another area. It gives me perspective in another area. And I think that those things are the very thing that made me, who I am today. And so it's the perspective I get to bring as a camp director, which is also really exciting.
Well, I think as you're working with people, it allows you to have empathy, and it allows you to ask the question of, what might they be going through? Steve Sexton said this when he was on the podcast, to see the greatness before the lack. Mm-hmm. And, I think we're just naturally negative people. I think we see the negative in people, and it just becomes so huge in our minds that we're unable to see their giftings. We're unable to see their calling. And I've always thought, and one of my big pet peeves is cancel culture. Mm-hmm. I just can't stand it, because it's this all or nothing concept, right? Mm-hmm. It's, they're all bad, mm-hmm. And I loved how you said, not to knock my parents, it was just their journey. It was the things mm-hmm. they were dealing with, and not to excuse it either, but
sure, absolutely.
But to cancel them or whatever, and not that we don't have boundaries in life. We do. I think boundaries are healthy. Boundaries are important. Right. But this whole cancel culture thing, it's like, we cancel people altogether, mm-hmm. And we don't have any grace for them. So right. I loved, what you said there, and how you were talking about that. And I think it's so important that we do that.
Yeah, that's so good, man. It's so good. I think it's hard to receive grace too. I think it's hard. Grace is obviously what we need.
And don't deserve.
But I think that it's hard to receive grace if you don't understand how bad you really need it. Because, again, before I had even encountered God, I didn't know I needed that. I'm just like living my life, just like whatever. Go deal drugs with my dad, sure, it's fine, whatever, it's whatever. And then you realize, oh my gosh, I am way off track here, And again, it was those first moments that was like, God, when God saw me and said, I still want you, and I don't want you any less because of what you've done, those were the moments that was like, oh my gosh. I remember one time I was, my dad, again, we had a pretty distant relationship because of his, of what he was going through. And I remember God speak, I was praying, and I was asking God, how can I better serve you? Well, I'd had this season where I was just like I was learning, you first become a Christian, and you think that every day is going to be, and God's presence can do that. It's just life is important to understand as well. You still need to do your homework. You still need to do the practical things that life, that life demands of you. You got to pay your mortgage. You got to go to work. You got to do those things. You can't sit in a closet all day long and pray, although we would love to. It'd be great. I would love the presence of God like that. But, Bible says to pray without ceasing, and I believe that applies to your everyday work life. Anyways, all that to say, I remember I'd had this really hard season trying to figure that out, and I had been really kind of distant from the Lord, and I had gone to Him, and God just kind of laid it on me, and He was like, He connected a dot for me, and He said, "Don't do to me what your dad did to you." And what had happened, and He connected this dot, not that I'm supposed to be anything, not that I'm supposed to be any sort of perfection for God at all or anything like that, but this dot that there was an absence there, and there was things that where my dad could have been there and he wasn't. There was the football games where I would, look up in the stands and see the empty seat, and those things really do have a pretty big effect on you. And it connected this dot that, man, God wants to be a part of every single part of your life. And people might call it stupid, they might call it overkill, but God wants to be there. He wants to be in it, and he is in it, and He is a part of it, but He wants the invitation. He wants you. He wants you to acknowledge, golly, I'm about to go and do this podcast. God, be on my lips. God, help me say the right things here. God, help, speak through me. Those types of little moments where we can tend to abandon Him and lean on our own understanding. And so another one of the moments that shaped me.
I think that's amazing. And, as I look at your life, Jay, you're such an amazing leader. You really are. And it really comes down to your heart. That's what I always say when I'm describing Jason Ross. I'm like, he's got the best heart, and so that's what makes him such a great leader. He loves people, and people see that. They know that about you. But what I love about your story is here you are, and I know you're not the perfect husband. Like you said, there is no such thing. I know there's no such thing as the perfect dad. But if we were trying to label that, you and Sid are really that nuclear family that's trying, and I love that about you because of your story. And I think sometimes we make excuses for why we aren't growing. We make excuses for why we aren't overcoming. Well, I would be, except for my home life. And I think, at camp, as we're working with kids, there's two reasons that kids come up for prayer. You can almost write it down every time when a young person wants prayer. It's friends and family. Yep. It's friends and family every single time. And for you, it would have been family.
Absolutely.
And so here you are with you didn't grow up like a lot of kids do with a nuclear family, as a blended family, and so all of that, but that didn't decide your outcome. Mm-hmm. You decide your outcome. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean you in self-help. I mean you in a relationship with the Lord get to decide God's calling. Nothing can stop what God is doing in you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's every single person. I always like to talk about, whenever you're going through something difficult, you either change it, you survive it, or you lead it better. And I think you did, or I think we do a combination of all three of those.
Sure.
And I think you did all three of those. But I love your story, Jason, because you are an amazing leader. You're an amazing camp director here at camp, getting to speak into the lives of all these counselors. But it doesn't matter what your start was. It matters what you do with it.
That's right.
God doesn't say, what did you start with? He said, what did you do with what I gave you?
Come on.
I mean, that's literally it. And you took every moment. And I think sometimes we want to change things that we don't have the ability to change. You had this upbringing that you didn't have the ability to change. You couldn't do anything about it. But the cool thing about God is whenever we have an empty area, whenever we're missing something, God says, I'm going to send a substitute. Mm-hmm. Okay, your teacher didn't show up. I'm going to give you a substitute teacher. Okay, your dad didn't show up. I'm going to give you a substitute dad. Here comes David Hilton. Here comes Stephen Sexton. And I know that that's my story. And I know that talking with so many people, that's their story. Mm-hmm. And I think having faith, that's the faith part of faith, that God's got this. But in the middle of it, that's easier said than done. And I'm hoping as people listen, to this podcast of yours, as they listen to your story, maybe they're sitting crying, maybe they're frustrated, maybe they're angry, and maybe God is just saying, I got you. Mm-hmm. Maybe God is saying, I got you. And so that's what I love about your story, Jay. And, I appreciate you being willing to share that. Because it's so easy to look at you today and think, oh, man, he's always been that way. He's always had it easy. But no, you had these awesome mentors who said, don't cheese me, lead me.
That's right.
Oh,
man.
Or mentors like me who said, are you going to be a part of the problem or part of the solution?
Man. I was so mad at you, dude. People don't know that I used to not like you. We used to not be the closest of mentor to pupil relationship. Because I had walked it. So just so everybody knows, David had set up this big event, and he was, David's trying to better America, like we're doing, I don't remember if it was like a voting thing or like something, but it was like, something to like, or maybe there was like a candidate that was coming in or something. Some sort of
trying to better the community.
Trying to better the community. Yep. Set up this, and everything's decked out in like red, white, and blue. Like he had done all this work, and I think he was setting up like a PowerPoint on the stage, was doing this all this stuff, and giving his life and his heart and soul to it. I walk in and I see everything, and I was like, man, looks like the 4th of July in here. And I was just making a joke, just being whatever. And you looked at me with the stonest face ever and was like, it's because I'm a part of the solution. You're a part of the problem. And I was like,
well, I had asked you if you were going to attend the event.
Oh, you did?
That's what it was. I had asked you if you were going to attend the event, and you were like, no, and you gave some excuse that I apparently thought was lame. And so I was like, oh, well, don't worry. I'm going to be part of the solution. You're part of the problem. You're the problem because you're not showing up to these events.
And then I remember
because that event was going to change the world if you showed up, apparently was how I felt.
Well, I remember walking out of the room. I laughed it off and walked out of the room. And I remember being like, who does he think he is talking to me like that? I'm Jason Ross.
And I didn't know I'd hurt your. That was.
Oh,
funny.
no, absolutely not.
I had no idea.
I was also a little hypersensitive at the time. I was a little insecure, so I was working through some stuff. So
I love that.
There's all that.
So what are some Brookhill 101s? Let's talk about leadership here. What are some Brookhill 101s? What are some things that you feel like shaped you as a leader?
Don't ask at staff training what kind of T-shirt you're going to wear that week.
Don't ask.
So that's 101.
That's 101. There we go. It's red.
Behind you. Yeah.
It's red. Brookhill staff in the back. So what? No, seriously. What are some things that you feel like shaped you as a leader that has caused you to be the leader that you are today? Some of the things that you apply to your life that we talked about in staff training, maybe that we teach in staff training. What are a couple of your top 3 or 4 that throwing out there? I always like to hit a little leadership concept.
Man. Jeez, man. Here's why it's hard. It's not hard to think of one. It's hard to only think of one.
Right.
Because there's so many,
right.
I just go to normal leadership. I would say number 1 is don't miss people. You things get so busy, me and you, before this, 3 interviews here, and we're trying to, get our all summer staff. I've done a total, just so you know, of 21 hours of interviews in the last week and a half. So there's a lot going on. You're busy, but, don't miss the people that are in front of you. Don't miss the people that are, that need, it's not about, I come in my office and I'll pray for you and you can get healing, you can go out. It's not about like seeing people like that. It's about seeing people like people need community. People need to just have normal conversation with you and know that you love them and still are there for them. And so, number 1, I would say see people.
Which I think is difficult in a work setting.
Oh, yeah.
Because work is tasks.
Yeah. That's right.
But that's where we're missing
to-do
it.
lists.
It's a to-do list. I got things to do. I don't have time to talk to you. I don't have time to see what's going on in your life. I don't have time to notice. Man, we had one of our guys just a couple of days ago. Man, come in crying. His grandfather had passed away.
Yeah.
And, yes, we have a lot to do, but we needed to take a time out and say, man, dude, what's going on? And listen. And then, I love, what Mike said, his direct boss, he just said, hey, man, go over to Vespers and, man, take a minute.
Take a minute. Absolutely.
Process that. Man, that's more important. You're more important than the task.
That's right.
And if we would start, you're more important than policy. People are more important than policy. They're more important tasks. When we can start doing that, I think people are. I love David Hilton. If we can go back to David Hilton, he said this just the other day. He said, "Connection or people, whatever. Connection is the currency of the kingdom."
Yeah, come on.
I'm going to be using that, and I will give Dave Hilton. I'll say David said that.
Say David said that. That's good. That's good. That'll make a lot of sense.
No, David Hilton, our youth pastor said. Connection is currency of the kingdom, but it's about people. That's what Jesus was trying to say. Do you love me? Feed my sheep. It's about people, and that is Brookhill. Connection is Brookhill 101.
So there's this. I want to say the Hebrew word, so like friendship.
Well, did you just go Hebrew?
I'm going Hebrew word.
Whoa!
I need to look at my notes.
Simple gospel. Simple gospel.
I want to speak out of turn. I want to speak out of the right. I'm pretty sure the word is gimmonsite for friendship in Hebrew.
Okay.
But whatever it is, whatever that word.
I believe you because I have no idea.
I'll look it up and tell you after the podcast.
Okay.
And then all these
I know a lot about go-karts, but not a lot about Hebrew.
But friendship translated out of Hebrew means the one who gives. It's not about, friendship, community. It's not about.
It's about taking from others.
Not about taking.
Yeah.
It's about giving.
It's great.
And if you are only hey, there's another leadership thing. There you go. There's my number 2. If you're only a taker, then you are a bad friend. And you can't be a good friend and only be a taker. So don't go into a friendship saying, hey, what can I get from this person? I'm not your friend because you're wealthy. I'm not your friend because you have good wisdom. I'm not any of that. You're a person, and I want to pour what I can into your life and help you however I can. So there's another one.
That's so good.
Yep.
That's so good. So when, this is a question that I'm trying to ask in as many podcasts as I can. Was there ever a moment in your leadership, in your life growing up, and maybe it was multiple moments, that you wanted to quit? Were there moments where you're like, it's not worth it anymore? This is too much. I can't take it anymore, because the reason I like asking that question is I think a lot of people think that, and I think they think that leaders have never thought that. They just automatically have this gift from God to just keep going and wake up every day and keep going, and but whereas if you're just listening to this, you're thinking, I have it tougher than them and I want to quit.
Like I was saying, everything valuable is worth it. It's got a fight to it, and I think the definition of a fight is, am I going to keep going or am I going to quit? And I think, yeah, absolutely. I've had those thoughts. I have to battle that just like anybody else does. Absolutely. And because nobody likes growth. It's uncomfortable. It hurts. And man, you know what? To be honest with you, just to be vulnerable, candid with you, there was a moment that I had. And I don't remember even what it was. It was like last week. And I had a moment. And I went to my office. And it was something that we had talked about. And it wasn't even a thing. It wasn't even a thing. Like, nobody was mad. It wasn't anything like that. But I went to my office and I was like, I suck. Like, I really didn't do that good. I whatever. And I was thinking, and I was like, dude, like, what are you even doing? And, and I think another part of fighting is not just that it's hard and not just there's hard things, but I do think the enemy attacks your mind. I think there's a reason the Bible says to take every thought captive. It's because something's coming to take it captive. Something's coming to put thoughts in your mind that aren't right.
Well, you're in the middle of hiring the staff right now. And the staff is Brookhill. Here you are in the middle of choosing who is going to be in cabins, who is going to be doing these different things, ministering to these children, and it's just like the enemy to try and take you out.
Oh, man, absolutely.
I mean, of course, if I can stop you from having a powerful conversation, and if I can stop you, Jason, from feeling like this amazing person, and that's how what's funny is I love Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. And you know, we think I'm the only one. And I think that's what the enemy wants us to think. I'm the only one. I'm the only one that wants to quit. I'm the only one that's not worthy. I'm the only one that's not good enough.
No.
Right? And here's Jason last week hired Brookhill staff camp director of Brookhill.
I'm a veteran. I know what I'm doing.
He's got a minivan. He lives in a gated community, you know. I think gated community might be giving it a little more than it really is. It's the village, you know.
It's the largest gated community in the world.
Oh,
so
wow. Stat drop right there.
I'm just dropping things. I think that's good, man. I'm so about this, like, I think that people are under the impression that, and this is what gets people in a hole, and especially as a leader. This is another leadership concept that I hold on to pretty tightly. We are on this illusion that, like, okay, I beat insecurity, it's gone forever, you know, or, you know, I beat anger, it's gone forever, you know, and if you think that, then you'll have a victory, and that's great, and then it's going to come up later, whether it's later in life or later that day or later a few weeks later, and then you're going to start beating yourself up, and you're like, dude, I beat this. Like, I'm past this. I thought I was past this. And then you get mad, and then it's frustrating, and it's a hard season. Well, I don't know that these things ever go away. They're just things that are there, and that you learn how to battle them well. You know what I'm saying? You become a kung fu master in beating insecurity. And it's not that you never feel that. And I feel like people feel shame because it's like, I feel insecurity again. I guess I'm an insecure person. Well, no, it crept up on you, and you know how to beat it now, you know? And so
you played football, and you had schools that you played every year. Mm-hmm. You may have won last year, but they're on the schedule again this year.
Right.
And I think sometimes we forget, you know, we think we only had that play that school one time. No, they're on the schedule again this year, so I got to be prepared. Because when they come into the arena, I got to win again.
That's right.
You know, and I think we forget that a new schedule comes out next year.
Yeah.
And we got to play some of the same teams again.
That's so good. It doesn't just go away.
I like competition, you know, just throwing it out there.
I figured that was the analogy that you gave.
Now, Jason, I love your story. I'm so grateful that you were on the podcast today. In fact, we're going to have you on the podcast some more from time to time.
Whoa, I passed the test? Yeah, I'm allowed to come back?
Because you got over 20 right unofficially, it gives you a chance to be a co-host from time to time.
It's not fair, by the way. The game's not fair for me.
The game wasn't fair for you?
I just placed counselors in cabins. Like, I just did that. So I got the list. In my mind, I was in the list right here.
Yeah, but it's also not fair for you because you were the first one to go through the game. Other people now are going to be studying. They're going to be practicing. This will be. Some people are going to not do well in some of their college classes because they're studying.
Because they're studying for this.
Yeah, this is a big deal. It's that important.
Something of value is worth fighting for.
That's right. No, I appreciate you coming on, Jay, because I love your story. I want people to hear your story because, I mean, you're just one of the biggest overcomers. I mean, that's just, you know, difficult things that you've been through. And I think it's important for people to know that I'm not the only one going through things. And so I love your story. I appreciate you coming on here on the Brookhill Podcast, Life, Legacy, and Leadership. That's it for today. Great job, Jay.
It's good.
Nice. Really good.
What you looking for?